Let's go through together how we can go from fraction to decimal to percent while also going backwards as well. So let's start with our first example of 3/4. Remember from yesterday's lesson that if I want to turn a fraction into a decimal, I can divide the numerator by the denominator. Remember, numerator means top, denominator means bottom. So I can go over to my calculator and do 3 divided by 4. I can see that I get the decimal 0.75. Over on the side, I can look for that decimal and drag that because it is equivalent. Now that I have my decimal, we also learned yesterday how we can go from decimal to percent. To do that, we can take the decimal, for in this case 0.75, and we can multiply it by 100. That gives us 75%. So I can drag that over to show it's equivalent to 3/4. Even though my fraction isn't 75/100, these are all still equivalent to one another. 3/4 is the simplified version of 75/100. Let's look at this second example where they first give us the decimal. Remember that I'm able to find the percent by multiplying my decimal by 100. So let's start there. 0.15 times 100. And that gives us 15%. So I can find 15% and drag that over. When it comes to finding the fraction that is both equivalent to our decimal and our percent, there are a couple ways you could go about this. You might first realize that we need to find a fraction that is equivalent or a simplified version of 15/100. Because I don't see 15/100 over as one of my options, I know I need to simplify. I can think of what is the greatest common factor, and if we aren't sure what that means, remember it is the biggest number that is divisible by both. So in this scenario, I know that both 15 and 100 are divisible by 5. So I can divide my top number by 5 and my bottom number by 5. 15 divided by 5 is 3. 100 divided by 5 is 20. I know now that the fraction 3/20 is equivalent to or equal to 0.15 and 15%. So I can find the fraction 3/20. Whoops. You could always take the root of doing the fractions last as well. Once you know all of your decimals and percents, you could then divide the numerator by denominator on all of the fractions to see where they match up at. Either strategy is okay for this assignment. Let's do one more together where you start with a percent. When we were going from decimal to percent, we were multiplying by 100. This time we have to work backwards from percent to our smaller decimal. Because we're working backwards, we can do the opposite of multiplying by 100. And instead, we can divide by 100. So 80, I don't need to put the percent sign, divided by 100 gives me a decimal of 0.8. I can then use that same strategy I did for the previous one to find my fraction that is also equivalent.